new theme song. I'm drowning in theme songs. This is so awesome. This one was by Nigel Grover. I will link to his sort of profile somewhere in the show notes or whatever so that you can check out his music if you want. Since I have 2 theme songs for the show now, I'm thinking of alternating month to month or something. I don't really have a plan. It was just like, oh, if I have 2 and I like 2, I might as well use both. There's no reason to limit myself. It would give sort of a sense of, oh, it's this month or that month or whatever. But you didn't come here for that. We have a couple of updates on previous stories, which I always really am happy about, the updates on old stories. We had the Tokyo election story when it came to the poster. So in Japan, it's not like North America. It's not like other countries where you go on TV and it's millions and millions of dollars. Basically, a politician in Japan is allowed to put up a poster. Of course, they can put up posters in multiple places. The posters they're allowed to put up are designated, though. So they basically put up a little sign that has squares on it, and on those squares, you can put your political campaign poster. Last year, in the Tokyo election, a couple people decided, hey, let's abuse the system. So the NHK party, which is basically just the troll party of Japan, said, we're going to rent out some of our space to people who have let's say non-relevant talking points. There was someone who posted their own Instagram. There was someone who just said like, I need friends and I'm lonely. There's someone who posted a picture of their dog, which is ironic because if you watch the video for Ninja News Japan, you will notice the portrait of my dog up in the top left corner. I don't know which way it actually shows up in the video now that I'm staring at my screen, but knowing it might flip. My brain just broke. The irony of that statement, but see, I have not decided to take this picture of my dog Dave and put it on a political platform.
It's a great portrait.
Thank you. It is a great portrait. I am very happy with it. And today you're getting the Dave sleeping under the picture of Dave. So it's just that whole universe I'm building behind me. We have the judo suit hanging up here, drying out. There was a adult professional who added her image. It was slightly censored, but just so. That seemed inappropriate. That actually seemed to be one to kick it off the most. And it turns out you can just buy this space and put up your non-political message. And they're like, this is kind of abusing the system of the political portraiture posters in Japan. So they've decided to set standards, regulate the posters, which actually I'm surprised Japan hadn't done already. But I guess to this point, they hadn't actually had anyone try to abuse the system yet. So now someone's abused the system. I've actually found Japan is very good at being reactive in its own way. They have a problem, they react to the problem. So we had gun controls very tight in Japan. And then for about 3 months, maybe 4 years ago, there was a whole bunch of crossbow attempted murders. I don't remember if anyone got killed, but people were shooting crossbows at each other. Crossbows are now illegal. Knives are illegal. They just like, oh, you did that? We don't like it? Illegal. So now they're like, you want to put like, not porn, but almost nude women up on political posters? No, we're going to regulate it. The new rule is you must have your name on the poster. Now, that actually seems like a very small thing. It actually seems like you would do that anyways. But if you put your name on the poster, it means you're not going to be able to just like slap a poster that has random stuff on it and then be able to hide from the fallout of the poster that you created. If you abuse the poster system, you can be fined up to 1 million yen. And if you promote a product, you can also be fined up to 1 million yen. The NHK party let their donors post anything they wanted. And that's probably where this is coming from, because basically any poster that goes up in the name of the NHK party, where they're going to have the actual name on the poster, they will be fined 1 million yen for each infraction. Not really a direct update, but last week's story about a man who got scammed because he had been served a warrant by the police that was not a real warrant. It was a scam, and the police were like, send us money to this bank account to prove that you are who you say you are, and we will drop the warrant. They said, like, there's a warrant in your mailbox right now. He went out to his mailbox, and there was a very official looking form that looked like a warrant sitting there, freaked him out, and he started paying money to these people who he thought were the police. Cost him, I forget how much money, but of course, scams that hit the news are always millions and millions of yen. And it's terrible because they're just taking advantage of this poor guy who doesn't really understand the system. Well, Japan is going to digitize search and arrest warrants to speed up the process. So basically right now, they have to go to a judge get a piece of paper, get the judge to physically sign the piece of paper, go back, and then they can execute the warrant. Now, this, again, is information that people need to know, because the concern for me is the digital warrant means these scammer guys can just start sending it out to anyone they want. They can send it out to whoever with the claim that this is a real warrant. So once they get a look at what these warrants actually look like, yeah, I think what's going to happen is once people actually start finding out that warrants are digitized, these scam guys are going to start sending out more, because it's a lot easier than taking a physical piece of paper and putting it in someone's mailbox is a lot Taking a piece of paper and putting it in someone's mailbox is a lot more work. Although I would actually say a lot more convincing. If you sent me a digital warrant for my arrest saying I had to pay money, I think I would probably ignore it. And I bet there's a very good chance it goes direct to spam. So I never actually see it. If I went outside and there was an actual piece of paper in my mailbox, I would be actually more likely to take that seriously. So maybe the scammers will be continue doing like, oh, people actually like check their mail. These are the people we want to abuse. These are the old people who don't know that arrest warrants have been digitized. This is all just to make it more efficient for the police. I'm just seeing, like, connecting to last week's story to this week's story. It seems like there is the potential for an exploitation there. And I'm just waiting to see if that comes about. They are also going to allow evidence to be digitized as well. So basically, you don't need the physical evidence. A picture of the evidence is going to be fine in many cases. This is probably mostly talking about documents and whatnot. South Korean police in Seoul have asked a Japanese woman to turn herself in after forcibly kissing Jin from BTS. This happened on March 1st. Now, there's a bunch of stories, and as I looked for more details, the title of the story changed slightly, but then the actual content seems to be exactly the same. This is a woman in her 50s, and she went to Seoul, South Korea. K-pop stars are very popular. This guy, Jin, had done his mandatory military service that is necessary if you're a South Korean man. So he got out, and then he rejoins BTS, and they decide to do an event. It's like a welcome back event, and this is called, it's for 1,000 fans. I don't know if they were chosen or they had to pay money. I'm assuming they had to pay a lot of money, but it is a hug event. And I was like, already, I don't know who to blame here. I don't fully accept who is fully responsible, because you're putting these women who are honestly just horny as hell for these men in a situation where they're allowed to hug them, and you're getting angry that she kissed him. Now, the forcible kiss is not acceptable, but I can see how it happened. Maybe that's what I want to say. So what happened is they were having this hug event. So I don't know how it's set up. I don't know how it works. In Japan, they have a lot of handshake events.
Hugging 1,000 people sounds like a terrible time for the performer.
I think engaging with 1,000 strangers is already off-putting enough. Japan has handshake events, and I already think these are gross. So basically you have usually the like teen pop star groups, the idol groups, and they line up, and then fans can pay money, or they have to have bought so many CDs, and then they get tickets or whatever, and they go up and they're allowed to shake the girl's hand and often say something to them, and then they move along. 99% of these guys are fine. Again, we're talking about thousands of people, so a small percentage out of 1,000 people is still a big group of people.
Imagine how chapped your hands would get.
Well, the problem is a story, and this is an old story. This is like a decade old. It was AKB48, and these girls are like, honestly, like 14, 15 years old. This guy walks up and he shakes her hand and he says, "I masturbated to you this morning using this hand," as they were shaking hands. And I remember the picture of the girl. She was disgusted. And as a father, I would have freaked out. And this is why, like, when my daughter showed any interest in like, oh, I want to be in like the magazines, or I want to do a pop group or whatever, I was just like, no, absolutely not. And it seems very restrictive and awful, but it was just me being protective, because I understand the desire to go out and do entertainment. I mean, I do this podcast. I understand the desire to go out and like share things with the world. I get it, but also I understand that for a young woman in entertainment, everyone around you is a leech. Like the fans are, the producers are. I'm just thinking everybody's gross. We had that thing last year with Johnny's where we found out like for the last 30 years, they've been abusing all the boy bands. Like for me, it is just a rampant aspect of pop culture in Japan. And I'm assuming other Asian countries as well. I mean, I'm assuming there's forms of abuse across all forms of media. It's usually, I would say, financial, but clearly in Japan it's sexual. So, but that was huge tangent just because it's something I actually remembered. So you have this event. This guy, he's done his 2 years military service. So these fans are desperate, and they're the ones who are willing to pay money or do whatever they need to do to become one of those chosen 1,000. And they get to go up and I assume say something to the guy and then hug him. Now, I don't know what the rules are on the hug. I actually tried to look it up because I bet there were rules. I bet there was like no grabbing ass. There was no like cupping heads. There was no like leaning in kind of stuff. I'm going to guess, this is not factual, but I'm going to guess you were allowed to like put your head on his chest and he put his arms around you, and you were probably supposed to keep your arms down. Like, I'm going to guess that it was something like that. Maybe not that exactly, but I'm betting there were rules in place like that to make sure that the women didn't get too excited about touching this guy who is a dream come true as far as they're concerned. So this woman, she's in her 50s. She's hugging this guy. He's in his 30s. She kisses his neck. So her face, I'm going to go, it's just again, assumption, height-wise, she's around neck level. She just leaned in and just gave him a little kiss. I don't know how hard it was or how gross it was, but the reason this came to light is they took pictures of his face immediately after he had his neck kissed unconsensually, non-consensually, not unconsensually, non-consensually. So he had been kissed on the neck non-consensually by this woman, and then he made a face. And that face made rounds on the internet in Korea, and it became kind of a meme. I was trying to find the picture, but I think it's in Korean, and I'm not able to suss out enough to actually, I bet I should just try a little harder. Maybe by the time I actually publish this, I'll have a chance. Now in Korea, something I learned very recently was Johnny Somali being over in Korea. You don't actually necessarily file complaints with the police on your own behalf. Other people can do that for you. So people were filing complaints on behalf of others for Johnny Somali. So this is something that can happen. If I see a crime, I can go and file a complaint amongst the crime. So because this was a picture that was put on the internet and everyone saw it, people started sending in complaints to the police that this woman sexually assaulted this man. Fans of BTS filed complaints via a government petition site. So I don't think they even had to go to the police. They just saw a picture on the internet, swapped browser windows, maybe made a new tab, went to this other thing and started lodging complaints. So 1,000 or a couple thousand of them later, the police are like, okay, let's put out a request for this woman to turn herself in. She has not turned herself in, but they did find out who she is. She has a blog, and on her blog, she wrote, "My lips touched his neck. His skin was very soft." Ugh. So I'm waiting to see. I mean, now, because they have her name, if she's returned to Japan, she's already gone through immigration. But if she actually tries to go back to Korea, because obviously a big BTS fan, big fan of Korea and wants to go do these things, she's not going to be able to, because she's not going to be able to get through customs because she'll get arrested at customs. So it'll be really interesting to see if she, A, turns herself in, admits her mistake, or, gives into the charges that have been laid out in front of her, or if she just tries to hide away, but then that denies herself the opportunity to see BTS again in Korea. I'm most interested to see if this woman turns herself in or like tries to pay the price for what she's done. 3 teens. So a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old. They're all from different prefectures. So I was like, first, like, how do these kids know each other? Like, how do 3 teenagers from different prefectures know each other? And then I realized, like, of course, it's internet gaming of some sort. Well, it's actually kind of worse than that. It was online gambling is how these 3 kids met each other. And of course, gambling is essentially illegal in Japan. So what kind of online gambling, they're not actually clear about. But the fact that these teens are doing online gambling shows they're already sort of a criminal bent, or they're naughty boys. They're trying to do bad things. They met through online gambling, and between May and August last year, used a program to try and log in to Rakuten mobile phone lines accounts. So basically, Rakuten is just one of the big mobile carriers in Japan, and they had paid for 3.2 billion login account numbers. So they had just on a big database on one of their computers, and they basically tried to brute force their way in, and every account that they could get into, they could take over account or try to resell that account. They used ChatGPT to help write a program to make their brute force login process more effective. So this is, you got now kids, teens who are using AI to help them commit crimes. And I mean, these guys they're young, which means they haven't even developed their skills yet, really. But I mean, who am I talking about? Like 15, 16, 17-year-olds? Those are the ones who are really good with computers. They're the best ones with computers. It seems like one kid was the mastermind and the other two were kind of the computer guys. One kid, the ringleader, was like, I did this to get clout on social media. I wanted people on social media to know that I had got X amount of phone numbers and lines and accounts, and I was selling to other people. So this was for internet fame. The other two kids...
15-year-olds are trash with computers now.
Depends on the kids, though. I actually understand what you're saying. Because the average kid isn't learning programming and stuff. They're just intaking like a TikTok. So they know how to use TikTok interface really well. So if I don't know how to do something on, let's say, a TikTok program, I ask my kids and they just find it instinctually. They know how interfaces work slightly better than I do. But yeah, if you're talking about actual programming, the average kid is garbage because they're not actually engaging with it. They don't have to figure anything out because all that's done for them. But the kid who is into it, he's amazing at it, which is a bit freaky. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying to a degree. Interesting development in my job because I meet a lot of sort of younger people who are just out of university and they come to Japan. And I've realized, and it's not, I don't think it's a criticism of them. None of them have watches anymore because they all use their phone. And it's just, I was just like, of course, why would you have watches now? Because you ask them, do you have a watch? Because they need to use a watch when they're like keeping time and whatnot, because we don't want people using their cell phones because it looks like you're waiting for a phone call or it's kind of rude. It has sort of like a negative feeling for the average Japanese person. So we want people using their cell phones as a timepiece. But the average person, younger person, let's say in their mid 20s, has never had a watch and is never going to have a watch unless you force them to. And I was like, of course not. Which is a little freaky, but and then I'm old, and of course, having said that, I am a bit of a watch fan. I have about 7 or 8 watches. This is the one, my most recent one that I wear the most. It's an analog watch. It has complications and all that other stuff. But they'll borrow my watch, the one I'm wearing, for whatever they're doing, so they can, do their work. And then they just look at it and you can tell they can't tell what time it is. Like they don't know what they're looking at. And then because mine are always so complicated with multiple dials, like this one has the 3 dials, it has a second hand, it has a timer and stuff like that. They have no idea what they're looking at. And it's just too many things on the watch. But I actually like all the complications. I like all that extra stuff to make the watches more appealing to me.
It's a nice watch.
So, it is a very nice watch. Thank you. It's the Tissot Sea-Star. And the reason I like it, it's got the Pepsi sort of style dial, which is actually a Rolex thing, but it's just how people refer to it now. It's a mechanical watch, so it does the move it around and it'll wind, but it has a 72-hour power save. So it means if I don't wear this for the weekend, it still runs. So you don't have to wear it every single day. That to me was the big selling feature. But anyways, back to these kids. They made 7.5 million yen in crypto selling these phone lines, these phone accounts. The 15-year-old said he wanted to gain attention in social media, and the other two said they wanted money. We've done multiple stories about how prisoners are treated. We had a guy who was being held by the police. He hadn't been fully arrested yet, but he was being held. And in Japan, again, they can hold you for up to a month without actually charging you. And this guy's lawyer gave him a t-shirt, and the teacher said, I am not answering any questions. And the police took that t-shirt away saying it was dangerous. And then the lawyer's like, look, the words are not dangerous. I just wanted to really remind my client that he was answering your questions. And there was a lot of back and forth there. People being held by the police in Japan are not treated well. Now, you could take a very hard line and say, well, they're suspected criminals. Why would we treat them well? But this is a case where they're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So you should treat them with a certain amount of respect. Maybe you have the idea that prison is punishment. Then yes, absolutely go apeshit on them when they're in prison because they've been proven guilty. I don't necessarily believe that. I personally think there is still the big question of prison being rehabilitation and or punishment, because it can't be both. But that's a whole other thing. I can tell you that in Japan, prison is punishment. It's not designed to rehabilitate you. It's not designed to make you better. It is punishment. Prison, they don't use heaters. They don't use coolers. So the summer's hot and the winter's freezing. My understanding is they don't give you enough food and stuff. It sounds like going to jail in Japan is a pretty awful thing. They've had another problem. They had a guy and he was in prison. So he has been proven guilty. He is in prison, and he asked his friend to bring him some books. These were tattoo designs in a coloring book. And what he wanted to do was just look at the designs because he was very interested in design and images before he was arrested. They don't actually say what he was arrested for. He had it taken away. And the police took this coloring book away because they said the desire to look at these designs promoted antisocial behavior because criminals in Japan have tattoos. And if you admire the tattoos, then you will learn to admire the criminals, and that is antisocial behavior. And we don't want that in our prison. But viewing original designs of tattoos, which symbolize antisocial groups, could foster admiration for such organizations. The tattoo book he was looking at had birds and unicorns and was very fashion oriented. So there is the Yakuza tattoo. The Yakuza tattoo, the cliche one would be a big dragon or a big demon on your back, covers your whole back, that whole thing. There is a style of tattoo that is connected with the Yakuza. I've played a lot of the Yakuza video games, and everyone has a unique and very beautiful tattoo in it. And they always rip off their shirt in an impossible way, which I've always really enjoyed. But they always rip off their shirt so you can see the big tattoo. It's a big reveal what tattoo they have. A gold koi, yes, that's one of the main character. Kiryu's friends actually had a koi. I think it was in Kiwami. But I want to get into that. I'm going to get into which character has what tattoo in that game. But there are a set of cliches, but there's certainly a style connected to it. I can guarantee at this point that there has never been a Yakuza who came out with a unicorn's tattoo, which honestly, I think would be awesome. If you got a unicorn tattoo in the style of the Yakuza tattoos, like coming out of a big wave, a big unicorn would be awesome. But again, birds, tattoos, these are no normal things.
They are ripping their shirts because it's always a button down that gets thrown to the right.
I know, it's too much. I love it. Sometimes they rip off their entire jacket and shirt and stuff all at the same time. I just think they're so strong that they just rip off everything that's on their body because they're awesome men and I love them. The point is, these were not Yakuza tattoos. These were fashion-oriented tattoos. And his desire was to study this while he was in prison.
They have breakaway clothes.
And then, no, it is not breakaway clothes. They are so physically strong. Their hands are so powerful. They just rip it off. If I can't do it right now with my jacket because I am not that strong. I am not the Yakuza video game level strong. I refuse to accept what you've just said. They are ripping clothes that were made by tailors yesterday. This other tangent. I've always wanted to do this. I think that I saw the thing on this on the internet. I've always wanted to wear a suit and then go and do some wrestling and fighting and see how the suit holds up. Like do an MMA match with a suit on. Because, you see John Wick and stuff, and they have their magic suits that are bulletproof and stuff. But how would a suit actually hold up in a real fight is a very interesting question. And so like an MMA fight where people are actually wearing normal clothes and fighting to see how the clothes hold up, not necessarily the winner or loser of the fight, would be really interesting to me. But no, we've gotten off on a tangent. This guy.
A well-tailored suit would hold up pretty well.
Stop it. You're going to kill me because I really want to talk about that as well, but I got to do the podcast.
A t-shirt would rip.
It depends on the quality of the t-shirt. I have a t-shirt. Fuck you. I have a t-shirt in my closet that is like double thickness. I actually don't think I could rip it. I think a normal t-shirt, I actually physically am strong enough to rip. I know like Hulk Hogan, big fan of everything he's ever done. He pre-rips it so he can pull it off because the collar is the hard part. So you have to cut the collar a bit. But I have a t-shirt and I didn't know it was industrial strength when I got it. But anyways, the coloring book he bought was not Yakuza tattoos. It was fashion, stylish, different styles, different pictures so that he could get sort of a broad range so that when he was released from prison, his goal was to become a tattoo artist. He thought, here's something that I'm interested in, design, art. I could do this. I could do art on bodies. It would be really cool. He has no intent to actually like support these organizations that they're talking about. So this is another case where the police just saw something. They don't like tattoos. So they've decided to extrapolate from the tattoos something of their own morality. And now they're saying like, this is maybe a human right violation because you're basically denying this guy the ability to study, to do something to improve himself once he leaves prison. Two people go to a ramen shop. I mean, that's great. They go to a very top-rated ramen shop. That's even better. They apparently didn't have a great experience. And I think it was one of those things where if you go to a top-rated ramen shop, your expectations are much higher. So if it doesn't meet your expectations, that you're going to give like a particularly low score. So since you have these high expectations, if you don't have the awesome experience that you expect, you're going to give it a really low score. Well, the owner of the ramen restaurant saw the reviews and seems to have had a very interesting reaction. He went to social media and he said, "I saw your post and you seem a bit weird." So that's already like not a great way to start your counter argument to the people who have given you a bad review. We try not to treat people like you as customers, so it's fine. So he's saying like, I don't care if you don't come back. You're a piece of shit anyways, but you should probably avoid eating out. Someday, someone like you will get screwed. I don't care. Just come Just come directly. I'll deal with you. So that's a veiled threat. Now, he hasn't said, I'm going to beat you up or anything, but he is already implying like, if you come back to my restaurant, I personally am going to take care of you in the sort of the traditional take you out kind of way. But then he continues to make it really clear. We run a planned business. So if you get in our way, we'll get in the way of yours too. So he's like, you've caused me trouble. I'm going to cause you trouble. The only thing he can do is come back. He continued and has said, like, basically, I want to kill this guy. The only thing he can do is come back, eat again, and write a good review with a photo. So he's saying, like, if you want to make up for this, if you don't want me to track you down and kill you, you need to come back. You need to come back, give a good review, take a picture, add that to your review, and then maybe I'll forgive you. But otherwise, I will not forgive you. Not even for the safety of his family. If he does that, he'll be killed right away. This kid is so scared, he'll really do it. So he'd better just come back and eat. So he's kind of flip-flopping back and forth on what he wants. He's basically saying, don't go out to eat. I don't care about your opinion, but at the same time, you should come back, eat the food again, and give us a really good review. I'll kill you, but I'm not going to kill you. I'll forgive you, but I won't forgive you. The guy clearly has just lost it. The owner asked social media users to give him any information they had on the two men who left negative reviews, offering them 100,000 yen if they had useful knowledge for their whereabouts. I'm pretty sure everything the owner of the restaurant just said is illegal. I don't think you're allowed to threaten people's lives. I'm pretty sure that we've actually done that story before. I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to offer money to track people down. I think that's going to be some form of harassment or stalking or something like that. I think maybe, just maybe, the owner of this restaurant has made a bit of a mistake and maybe crossed some lines. So now we have our last story of the day. And our last story of the day is, of course, an older gentleman doing something absolutely insane, because that's apparently what older gentlemen do in Japan. A man who's 61. So he's past our 50-year-old threshold for crazy behavior. So he's really, I guess, maybe just a late bloomer. He decided it would be a really good idea to throw burning paper through the window of an apartment building. So he had two things of paper he set on fire and he threw them into an apartment. It says through a window, which I have to assume was open, but it's also wintertime. So I'm a little torn on that. I was trying to find more information to see like when this actually happened. Oh no, it was June 9th. I actually did find when it happened because I do sort of do my job sometimes. June 9th, 2024, he walked by a house, an apartment building, and he threw two burning papers. So I'm assuming balled up, set on fire. They didn't get into specifics of that, and threw them into the house. So I'm going to guess that the window was open. That's like, I don't actually know that for sure, but they say through the window. The only way that would really work was it's actually weird that there was no like mesh on the window to keep bugs out, but maybe he broke that first. There's a scant details to the first part of the story. What we do know is he threw burning stuff into an apartment building. Would you be surprised that he ended up accidentally setting the entire apartment building on fire? 9 units were destroyed. A 48-year-old woman on the second floor actually died as a result of oxygen asphyxiation. He set the fire because he had feelings for a female resident. Now, his plan was he was going to set the fire and then rescue the female resident that he was attracted to. But he set the fire and then the fire got out of hand really fast. And he says, the fire was bigger than I anticipated and I couldn't handle it, so he ran away. There are so many problems with this, but to me, the biggest one, with his plan, not with like, again, committing these kind of crimes and arson and whatnot and actually killing someone, is that the woman he wanted to save was not even home. So his plan was based on, I'm going to set a fire, and then when this woman is in trouble, I'm going to save this woman, and then she's going to see me as a hero and then fall in love with me. He didn't take the time to check if she was home first before he set the fire. So now he's being arrested for arson and murder. And I just got to wonder how he got to this point in his life where he thought this was actually going to work out.